Hi, I'm Norm Abram. Welcome to the new Yankee Workshop. Have we got a treat for you? Recently we visited a Dutch antique dealer in Jupiter, Florida. Now if he doesn't have old pieces for you, he'll build new pieces that look old. While we were there, we found a wonderful antique steamer trunk. We'll take you there next, right here on the new Yankee Workshop.
The new Yankee Workshop features the craftsmanship of Norm Abram.
Well, I am in heaven. If you love antiques, and in particular pine antiques as much as I do, this is the place to be. Maurice's Antiques in Jupiter, Florida. And I heard that he just got a new shipment in. Hey, Maurice.
Hey, Norm, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, I see
Show
you.
me some of this new stuff you got.
Yeah, we just have a big shipment in, so as you know. Like here in the front, I have this oak table from France, you know, with the iron base. But what is really new for us to bring this also in, like it has a leaf in the middle, so it's oval, and you can make it also in a round table.
And it's all distressed, so it looks old.
It looks real, but it is reproduction.
How about some authentic antiques?
I'd like to show you the Dutch linen press over here, Norm.
Wow.
This is a very unique one, especially with all the carvings. And it's pretty ornate, eh?
It sure is.
You
Very
see,
complicated.
in the old days, the Dutch people, they used it in the bedroom as a linen press to put their linens in, eh? You see, especially hardware, how beautiful it is, eh?
Brass.
Yeah.
How about some painted pieces?
I'd like to show you some of our painted pieces, you know, over here. Like, for instance, this one is also a entertainment center. You know, my son designs, Maurice, and he designs them all by the computer.
So this is not an antique?
No, we make them in our factory in Port St. Lucie.
Sure looks like one.
Yeah. And then we have an artist, he's doing all this artwork for us. But look here inside, it has the pocket doors, as you can see. It's still not finished inside, because sometimes you never know what the clients want.
I
you know?
see. Well, it looks
And
great.
yeah.
Now look, you're an old Dutchman. I know you got some favorites hiding around here someplace, so I want you to show me some.
I know, I like to show you something. One of my favorite pieces over here. It is from my own collection. It is a music box.
Wow, and where'd you get that from?
I found it on one of my trips to Holland, also a long time ago. You know, I think we came over in 1981, and I found it in 1985 in the Netherlands.
Does it still play?
Yeah, it needs to be tuned, but I'd like to play it for you, okay? It has 6 different songs.
Ooh. You're right, it does need to be tuned.
It needs to be, you're right. Find a good tuner for me.
Boy, you are really packed in here.
It's crowded, Norm. That's the reason, you know, I have to build my warehouse a little bit bigger.
A lot of great pieces. And, hey, this is something I've been thinking about.
Ah, you're
I
looking
wanna-
for a trunk.
Well, sort of a trunk, yeah, something that we can put at the end of a bed, you know, for storage. But this one's
This
a
is
little
too
bit small.
Yeah, I understand. But you like a real old one with nice hand dovetailing.
That's right.
and okay, let us show you something else, Norm. Over here. What do you think about this one?
That's an interesting piece.
Oh yeah, you know, and it has the original date still, 1795.
Boy, that's an old one.
It's beautiful, eh? The artwork is all original. And I
Little
show
bit of
you
storage
that
area.
secret, oh look here, secret compartment.
Oh, look at that.
You can
Very
see the
clever.
little drawers. They tried to hide their jewelry in there, you know, in the old days.
Well, you know, it's a very unique piece, but it's painted, and again, it's just a little bit too small. I need something bigger.
Oh, you want something bigger than this? Are you using it on the end of a bed?
That's right.
Ah, I think I have something. I hope it's not salt, but over here, this one, let us see if it has a salt sticker. No, it's still available, Norm. Is that maybe something you can use?
Yeah, now you're talking. This is the size I'm looking
look
for.
here.
Where did you get this from?
It is from Holland. It's a Dutch dome chest. You see the roundings on the top.
Yeah, nice
And
metal
then
strap
the
hinges.
hardware, and it has the handmade nails.
Plenty of room inside.
Yeah, but I'd have to tell you honestly, we did some repair work because very often the bottom, you know, you have to do some repair.
They get rotted, yeah.
Yeah, and then also the locks are still original here, but those pieces I had to remove because when it is locked, you can't open it
Yeah,
anymore.
no, that's
you
not
know?
a problem. Nice dovetails, through
Oh, yes,
dovetails
it's
on the
all-
corner.
All hand dovetailed.
And I like the fact that it has these small turnings, these feet that keep it
Pretty.
up off the
Yeah,
floor.
it's pretty, and it's the right height also, I
This
think.
is perfect.
Beautiful piece.
Well, now comes the hard part. Do you ever try to make a deal with a Dutchman?
You know, it's hard to deal with a Dutchman, you know?
Can we talk?
Let me talk about it, okay?
Okay. Well, it took several cups of coffee, but I think we negotiated a fair price for this antique steamer trunk. It's a beauty. Over here, our version. Now, I haven't installed any hardware yet because I want to put the finish on first, but I kept a lot of the details from the antique. Have the turned feet, a molding around the base, these through dovetails, and this dome top. If you'd like to build your own version of the steamer trunk, a measure drawing is available with the materials list, and you'll hear more about that before the program ends. A lot of you write to us and send emails saying, where do you get antique timber? Well, it's not rocket science. We subscribe to several woodworking magazines, and in the back there's all kinds of ads for flooring and reclaimed timber. Now, we called one of those companies down in Pennsylvania and asked, do you have any chestnut? They said, how much? So we gave them an order, and they shipped it up in about 5 days. It's not inexpensive, and chestnut doesn't grow anymore. The trees were killed by a blight. So these timbers come from old beams. Here you can see a little whitewash that remained on one of them. And they slab it out into about a 1-inch thickness. This is wormy chestnut. We love it. Has a beautiful look, and it takes the finish very nicely. Now, it looks tough there, but with a little bit of work, we can make some nice panels for this chest. In fact, I want to start with one of the front or back panel. I have 3 pieces about 6 inches wide. And if you look at this timber, it's not perfectly straight. Sometimes it's even twisted. We need to flatten it out. So to do that, we start at the joiner. Now, before we use any power tools, let's talk about shop safety. Be sure to read, understand, and follow all the safety rules that come with your power tools. Knowing how to use your power tools properly will greatly reduce the risk of personal injury. And remember this, there is no more important safety rule than to wear these safety glasses. All of these pieces are different thickness, from a little over 1 inch to about 13/16. So I want to take the thickest piece, set my surface planer to about 1 inch to take a 1/16 off. I'll run all 3 pieces until they're all 3/4 of an inch thick. Now each board is uniform in thickness. Now I have to work on the edges. Here's where we're up against here. We're never going to make this look like one piece of wood, but we want to come as close as possible. I also want to pick the best face. This one has a little split, so that'll go up. Same thing with this one, that goes up, and these two match pretty well. This one is a little bit of a toss-up, but I think in that sequence it'll be okay. So now I want to keep this order, so a witness mark across each joint. And I want to glue this up to make a panel, but the joints are very uneven and rough. To straighten those out, it's back to the joiner. With the edges nice and straight, I have tight joints. And now I'm just putting a few marks for some biscuits to reinforce those joints. All right, while the panel dries, let me show you how we make the feet. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. I need 4 of these feet. So I have a square piece of chestnut. I've drawn the circle of the diameter. Rather than take this off with the chisel, I'm going to clip these corners at the table saw. I've mounted the blank in the lathe and I've just run it to make sure it's relatively balanced. Now I want to turn it into a cylinder. To do that, I'm going to use this gouge. Okay, that's pretty much a cylinder. Now the idea is that I want to get all 4 feet out of this piece, but I'm afraid this knot might present some problems. I'll give it a shot. Maybe I'll have to turn another one. I have this template of the foot, and the first thing I want to do is mark all the major transition points. Okay. With the layout complete, the first thing I want to do is turn this portion of the foot. I'm going to use my parting tool to do that, and I'll get it to the right diameter by checking with my calipers. Now I turn to a gouge to do both the convex and the concave features. Well, as you can see, the knot blew out, so it looks like I'm only going to get 2 feet out of this blank. Have to find another piece of stock. For the last several minutes, I've been working on the panels to form the sides of the steamer trunk. After they came out of the clamps, I scraped off the glue, sanded them smooth, ripped them to width, and cut them to length, making sure that they're perfectly square. The corners are going to come together with through dovetails, just like the antique original. The front and back will get the tails, these nice large tails, and the ends will get the pins, the part that slides between the tails. I'm going to machine those on my dovetailing jig. Now the instructions for this jig say to cut the tails first, so I've taken one of the large long panels, installed it with the inside facing out, and installed this backer board. To actually cut the tails, I'm going to use my router, which is equipped with a 5/8 inch collar and this large dovetailing bit. Okay, that takes care of the tails. Now I'll set up for the pins. Okay, the first thing I have to do is change from a dovetailing bit to a straight cutting bit. Now, following the manufacturer's directions, I've made some adjustments to the jig, and I'm ready to cut the pins. All right, let's see how we did. Okay, that's good. Just a slip fit. Now I can finish the rest of them. The bottom of the trunk is going to be this panel made up out of glued up pieces of poplar. I didn't want to waste the chestnut on the inside where you're not going to see it very frequently. That panel will float in grooves that I'm going to machine in all 4 side pieces. Well, we're just about ready to glue this piece up, but here's a tip I've found over the years that cleaning up the glue on the inside of these joints can be difficult, but not if I line it with a piece of masking tape first. There are so many glue surfaces here that once I paint the glue on, I'm going to put the joint together and temporarily clamp it as I move to the next one. Now the bottom goes in dry. I want it to float. And I'll apply glue to the rest of the dovetails and finish the assembly. Well, now that it's all clamped up, I want to remove the tape so that it doesn't leave behind any residue. But before I leave tonight, there's one more thing I want to do. I want to make up this molding that goes around the bottom of the trunk. There's a little bit of a round over and a little bit of a cove. I've equipped my router table with a 1-inch round nose bit to make the cove, and a couple feather boards to hold the stock in place. Now I've installed a 1/4-inch round over bit, and that will complete the profile. All right, well that'll do it for today. Tomorrow we'll make the lid, put some finish on the piece, and install the hardware. Well, good morning. I want to get started today working on the lid. Let's take a look at the prototype. On the prototype, they laid the boards for the top on top of the end panel, so you see end grain. I don't really like that detail, so on my prototype I made a change. I ran the end piece up to the top of the board, so there's no end grain showing. Now whenever you build something like this where you have the grain running one way here and the other way here, there's going to be movement and there's a chance that these pieces might split. So what I did is I picked boards as dry as possible, about 8% moisture content. And when we finish this piece, I'm going to make sure that I seal both the inside and the outside to keep it as stable as possible. Now earlier this morning, I started working on the frame of the lid, these 4 pieces. The corners are through dovetails, made the same way I made the ones on the chest. It's just a dry fit now. The first thing I want to do is cut the curve in the end pieces. As before, we'll glue and clamp all the joints. If you look at the underside of the lid for the prototype, you can see that I added a piece of 1/2-inch stock to support the boards which form the top. The corners are simply cut at an angle. The easiest way to make that angle cut is to use a tapering jig. A little bit of glue and a few brads is all I need to secure it. The center board of the lid is simply cut with square edges. The pieces that go on each side need to be beveled to meet that. That bevel is 12 degrees. So I've tipped my table saw to 12 degrees and I'll run 2 pieces through. Now I've installed the dado set at the same pitch to make a little rabbet. And that is going to lap over the long piece of the lid. That's going to be good. To form the final curve on the top, I'm going to use a combination of planes and sanders. I think I'll remove this portion, however, at the table saw. I'm going to reinforce the joint between the boards with biscuits. For the center board, the cut is made 90 degrees to the edge. For the corresponding slots, which are cut in the adjacent board, I need to set the plate joiner at 12 degrees, the same as the bevel on the edge. Now we're ready for some assembly. The first thing to do is to put the biscuits and glue on the joints between the boards. With some glue applied to the frame, take the assembled lid section and drop it in. It's a little tricky, got to get it just in the right spot. And we'll clamp it and secure it with a few brads. But while that top dries for a while, we're back to work on the trunk. I installed some small pieces of plywood to bring the bottom even with the edges. I've just drilled a through hole for a screw, which is going to secure the feet, and I've also pre-drilled a hole in the foot. Here's that molding that I made earlier. I've carefully mitered all the pieces to fit around the bottom of the trunk. I cut some slots for some tiny biscuits, and now I'll just brad it all on. Well, it's back to the lid. The glue has dried, I've removed the clamps, and now I'm refining the curve. I like to use a small, low-angle block plane. This is a very shallow curve, and I just slowly remove material and feel it until it approaches what I want. Then I'll smooth it with my belt sander. And finally, I'll take a random orbit sander to it. Well, with the top sanded, I can now use it as a form to make those metal straps. Went down to a local blacksmith shop and picked up some thin steel. But I want it to look old. I don't want it to look smooth. So by using this heavy iron plate and a ball peen hammer and pounding on it for a while, I can get it to look like this, which is just what I want. Now the trick is to bend the steel over the lid. I'm going to start with a sharp bend right here to bring it around the front. I'll take the piece, set it in my machinist vise, make sure it's square to the vise. And I could bend this cold, but I find it a little bit easier if I heat it up, just using an ordinary torch. Okay, I think that'll be good enough. Now I grab it plenty far away from where I've heated it, put some pressure on it, take my hammer, and bend it by eye to where I think it should be. Okay, now let's cool it off. Bring it over to the piece and see how close we came. That's not too bad. Now I'll just bend it over the top, do the same thing on the other end. In addition to the pieces that go over the top of the trunk, I've made two straight pieces which are going to run down the back. All the pieces have through holes and countersinks for screws, but before we put them on the trunk, let's put some finish on. To show off the beauty of this antique chestnut, we chose a clear finish. Now this is the final coat, which is a wipe-on poly. It'll give the piece a hand-rubbed look and still protect the wood. Now for the base coat, I used a 100% wax-free shellac, which is compatible with polyurethanes or varnishes. That should give it all the protection it needs. The first piece of hardware is the hinge, and I've put a spacer to hold the lid up just a little bit for clearance. I've located a center line, and I'll pre-drill for the screws. Okay, next are the handles. We got these nice antique looking handles. I screw one escutcheon on, slip the rest of it in place. Leave a little room to make sure it doesn't hang up. Pre-drill and put in the screws. The nice thing about these handles is that they have a limit. They can't flip all the way up and catch your fingers. The straps meet the butterfly hinge and are attached with some brass screws. Now, for an antique looking knob, let's get screwed on. And one more thing, I want to put a piece of chain to keep the lid from falling back too far. Well, here it is, ready for an around-the-world voyage, or no further than the foot of your bed. This was a fun project to build.